Thanks for being here. This is Chuck Piles, and I have a true story that is got to be shared about the goodness of God. And it goes back to years ago when I was working. I had gotten a job renting storage units in a storage rental facility. So my boss called me one night and said, I need you to go to our 12th Street location tomorrow. We're going to have a very important visitor. Well, it turns out he's going to test my manager, he said. The visitor was the executive vice president of all the western states, so he was a big wheel in this nationwide company. So the next day I met him and my manager at that location, and he told me right after lunch we'll start the test. But he said it in such a way that I realized he's not testing my manager. I'm going to be tested today. So I called Gail. I told her, pray, because I am going to be the one tested, not my manager. When they came back from lunch, they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you go rent him a storage unit, make some calls, things like that. Things that you would normally do in the process of renting a storage unit. So I did everything well with the storage unit. I rented him a storage unit. I sold him a lock. I upsold him boxes, tapes, and all the things that I'm supposed to do. The next thing he wanted me to do was make some phone calls. Every week we had a list of people whose storage units were in jeopardy of being sold to people who come in and buy storage units because you didn't pay your rent. So I started making phone calls, and I got to the one guy that I knew was never going to answer the phone. I've called him many times. So the phone rang, and of course it went to voicemail. I said, Bob, this is Chuck. Bob, are you familiar with the television series Storage Wars, where they sell storage units? You may want to watch that series Thursday night because you're going to be on it. The executive vice president's eyes got big. He looked shocked. As I hung up the phone, I said, he's not going to pay it anyway, so he thought that was pretty good. So we finished up all the testing, and I did very well because Gail prayed for me. The Lord was in it, and he finished well. However, at the very end, this guy stopped as he was leaving. He had his hand on the doorknob, and he turned to me and said, Chuck, I just met you today, and I ask everyone I meet the same question. He said, is your glass half empty or is it half full? That's when prayer kicked in. The Lord gave me an answer I never expected. I looked at this vice president and I said, sir, I don't have a glass. He was shocked. He looked at me totally confused and said, you don't have a glass? I said, no, sir, I don't have a glass. I have a cup and it runneth over. He looked at me and said, Chuck, that is the best answer I have ever heard in my whole life. And then he left. So the